You guys should have me on audio if you want to give me a quick check on audio. I'll just operate under the assumption that you guys can hear me at this moment. If you can and you're joining me here in the TheTerrainStudio, welcome or welcome back. Tonight I'm just continuing to work on the Kashyyyk table. I switched up the layout a little bit tonight so you guys can see. Perfect. Thanks, Mark. Just so you guys can see me here a little bit closer in. Last night I tried a couple angles. I'm just doing this one. I switched the overhead to be smaller and over here. So if you guys need that switched at all, I can definitely adjust that and change it. But what I'm going to be working on tonight is some of the paneling here. I started today. I figured out that even though I'm making a template, the plastic dish that I'm working with needs a little bit of adjustment. So I basically cut it to size and then I just do a fine adjustments to kind of get these to lay in. I'm trying to keep the seam here fairly tight and move around here. I put a flat panel in because a couple of the sections are going to end up being really, really close to the tree branch. And because of that, I don't really need a window there. So you can kind of see I've got that sort of vaulted look. Hey, how's it going, Chaucer? So yeah, this is what I'm going to be working on tonight, doing some of that. I will also show you, I got a little bit further ahead today than I had thought. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about the roof. I finished up at least the bulk of the building for the rooftop here, and so you can see that I put in that elevated section like I said I was. I did this on stream last night. I put in two bracing struts here, and what I did with those is I just allowed me to flex the roof down a little bit, and then I added in these pieces just to keep it a little bit flat, so I didn't have to worry about when I glued it down to flex it there, because I just didn't want to distort this plastic dish anymore. I got the funnel affixed to the top here. Obviously this is going to get it a different look. It's going to have the covering very similar to what I did for the platform, so it's going to get the hide covering here. This is obviously all ventilated or vented ribbing. Again, I just showed you guys last night. I was just using that corrugated paper. This stuff is basically scrapbook paper. You can also just tear apart some cardboard if you want to be tedious with that. Just got to make sure that you get all the paper off. It's a little bit time consuming. It's tough to get this small rib stuff. So I just prefer to have this. I had it in the studio here, so I wanted to use it. I've used it before for very similar things, doing sheet metal roofs and things like that at 15 mil. Works quite nicely as well. So I think the look turned out pretty good. I ended up cutting, effectively what I did, I saved the piece here just so I could show you, even though I didn't cut. I'm not going to cut any of these tonight. So what I did, when I made this large circle here, and I kind of showed you or talked about that, I cut out a wedge, just a wedge here. And then by cutting out the wedge, then I was able to flex it and kind of get this disc shape that you see here. What I then did is I always save the wedge that I cut out, because I know that the wedge is at least some proportion of this circle, so I can basically extrapolate this piece here around the disc, and that's going to give me the pieces or the parts to make up the whole. So when I did that, I'll get to your question in one second, Chaucer. So when I did that, I saved this. This then became my template, and you guys will know I love templates. I love making sort of jigs and things to make my work easier. So this ended up being the piece that I used here. Then when I invert it and laid it on the roof, I was able to go around and use these sections, and because they were already cut to a neat angle, or a known angle, I didn't have to really do a lot of measuring. And then when I put two pieces together, it created this unique wedge pattern. And so there's a pattern within the roof, and I thought, hey, that looked pretty sharp. And so I just made that go all the way around. Then I did the very same thing here at the top one. Again, I just used the wedge that I cut out of that one. And then I ended up, lo and behold, with this sort of roof. This roof gets placed on there, and then it gives me a look something like that. So there's the hut. This hut was going to end up in the top of the tree, and so that is it's too big to show you in this particular camera footage, but you guys will get some pictures and things like that. I'll share them around. So I was going to do some of this tonight. I got a little ahead, so I set that aside, and I'm going to continue working on this. It's pretty time consuming, so really it's going to be a lot of me answering questions that I hope to have pop up tonight, and cutting these as I work through. I will occasionally have to measure it on the tree behind me, so if I disappear for a second, that's where I'm at. Okay, there's a device that makes corrugated style that you can use paper, thin metal. Okay, cool. That's really neat. I didn't know there was such a device. I'm not sure the price of this. This stuff doesn't end up being too much money, but it is good to know if you wanted to convert something that you had as a particular material to do that. That's really cool. If you want to throw a link in the comments, probably people could check that out. And I will check that out as well when I'm not live streaming. So what I'm going to do right now is just make the next section. So last night I was talking about templates and using a thin one. So when I got off camera, I did in fact make my template. I measured out my my window. This is going to be the space where those struts are going to go across. They're going to be kind of like, I talked about it last night. There'll be some plastic card that goes across there, that tubing. So 3 strips will go across there. I also decided what I'm going to do is take a little veneer like this when I'm done and cut it to fit over here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut away pretty much everything that's above or sorry, below here. And I'm just going to have a little bit of I guess a raised or a recessed, depending on which way you're looking at it, panels, so kind of going over the top of the windows. In the pictures I'm using, it's got kind of this venting. I think it'll be a little bit too small, and it'll be a little bit lost in translation as to what exactly it is. So I'm going to kind of fudge and use my own sort of decorative panel here at the top. I may actually glue some things on here as some adornments, some decorations for the top portion. So yeah, so this is in fact the Kashyyyk table that I've been talking about, or that I've been showing. Last night I sort of showed the tree. I'll do my very best. I'll slide it under the overhead cam here again, so you guys can get a size or a sense of the size. I did this last night as well, but you might be new, so here it is coming under the camera. And to the end, and then I'll slide it by the close cam here, and you guys will probably be able to pick up some of it. It is ginormous. There it is. It's really, really big. It's about 3 feet tall, probably about 12 inches in diameter for the bulk of it, maybe 10 inches, and about 16 at the bottom. So it's pretty large. Okay, so let's just get started cutting some panels. So what I'm going to do is, I've been cutting these one at a time, just as a lot to, just a little bit easier for me. Then I don't end up with random pieces laying around. I kind of cleared all that off. I will show you right from the very start. Yeah, it's absolutely huge. You were correct. From the base plate here, it basically goes up to about there. So I only have about 2 inches of clearance from the top of the camera. So it'll be pretty big. It'll look really neat because you'll basically see this for the most part when you're looking in the overhead, but then when we can move that around and obviously be able to see it from different angles. But the treetop house will take up quite a bit of the top. So okay, so what we're going to do for here is, and feel free to ask all the questions. It's not a distraction to me at all. In fact, I appreciate the distraction from having to work. So what we're going to do is measure off a 2-inch strip on this edge. And my head's going to get in the way occasionally when I lean over, but just bear with me, and I'll try my very best not to block all the camera angles, but for this particular part I need to. go. Can never have enough rulers sitting around.
So you want to get this pretty close, but as I said, I'm kind of custom cutting each piece just as I see fit. So I want to just be very close on this. It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. Helps if I don't bump it too much.
There we go. All right, and always having sharp knives, I go through a ton of blades. So I generally, on this thick stuff here as well, I think this is 2 mil. Let me take an exact measure for it. Yeah, it's 2 mil. For this stuff here, it just chews through blades like there's no tomorrow. So it is definitely not the cheapest material to work with in terms of blades. I use small blades. I don't use the larger ones, but I always break my rules when it comes to cutting bulk. So when I get into the precise cuts, you'll notice I make several cuts, typically 2 cuts per half mil, so that means 8 cuts through. However, with this right here for the initial cut, because it's such a large piece, I can get away with just a few cuts and then I can do a snap. So I prefer to snap backwards as opposed to forward. If you snap this way, what ends up happening is you typically put too much stress because you're kind of going with your cut and or I guess against your cut. If you go this way, that's already the direction you were cutting, and so you can flex and then do a nice clean snap and you get a really clean edge. Fisker paper crimper. Okay, so it's made by Fisker, familiar with that company. They make a lot of cutting instruments, of course, scissors being one of them. So it's not surprising that they make some paper working tools. Thanks for that, by the way. Okay, so now we have a strip. We'll be able to get roughly 3, I think, 2, 3 with a little extra. Fantastic. So we'll get 3 more panels out of this, but we're going to do them one at a time, as I had said. I know the exact measurement of this. I'm not going to bore you with it because it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to quickly measure up my sides. And then I'll show you what I'm doing next. 1, 2, 3, 2, 4, 6. There we go. Okay, keep my template aside. Don't want to cut that. Cut it up anyway. All right, just going to drop this on here. Using one ruler to give me a nice defined edge. Mark that across. We're going to do the same thing. How will I integrate the base of the tree into the board? Great question. If you will bear with me, let me do this cut and then I'll show you exactly what I'm going to do. Or I'll talk about it anyway. Great, I appreciate the questions. It makes my work a lot more interesting if I can share some things instead of just telling you what I'm doing. All right, fantastic. All right, let me show you what we're going to do for the tree base. Let me bring this up, back up here. There's a great picture of me going around that my studio compadres found, and it's me kind of giving the tree a big hug, so they like that one. Okay, so what we're going to do, snap that. That was just me snapping some foam. So the tree itself, the reason that I have it on this board, it was a lot easier to... oh, fantastic. You do know me well. I do appreciate some good hobby tack, and that is a joke. The tree itself was a little bit tippy working with just when I started to shave it, and you can kind of see how smooth the foam is. So there was a lot of work to get this prepped, and so what I decided to do was attach it to this piece of MDF, both for structural integrity as well as the ability to kind of work a building table and then take it down just so that I could drop a little bit of height. So what I'm going to do with these is I'm going to end up pegging the tree in on the corners. I'm just going to create some dowel slots here, and it's going to slide into a piece of MDF that looks just like this one here. Fantastic. Okay, that's really unfortunate that you didn't find your luggage. Hopefully you got all your meds and your other stuff replaced at not a charge to you. That would be ridiculous. But okay, that's really poor airline management right there. So just getting back to this, what we're going to do is we're going to peg the corners, and then when we build the table, when I build the table, saying we as a collective here, you on the live stream, when we make this table, we're going to slide this into to those pieces. So let's just say, for lack of an argument, that it's going to slide in. It's going to look like this. The table itself is going to get a 1/2 inch treatment of foam. So it's going to be MDF, and then we're going to build that up a 1/2 inch. With the table built up a 1/2 inch, this is going to marry up to this MDF quite nicely. And so it's basically going to slide into this pocket. We won't have any foam underneath this. That's going to create our new level surface. This is going to give us two pieces of ease to work with. One, it's going to allow our tree to kind of slide in seamlessly and pull out. We'll have just a seam here that we need to cover up, and we'll do that cleverly, and it shouldn't detract too much. Secondly, though, what it's going to allow us to do is this foam right here is going to have a beach. We're going to have a beach on here. So it's going to allow us to have the beach artificially built up already from the ground level. And so this actually becomes ground level, and then this becomes water level. So we'll cut a nice unique shape into the foam, and then under the foam and where the water effect's going to go, we'll actually have plastic card, thinner than the 2 mil, but the plastic card will go over top of the MDF. This will prevent any seeping or leakage into the actual MDF. And then it will allow us to slope the foam down onto the plastic card. We'll be able to pour the resin or whatever we choose to use here. It will be able to wick up and run up onto the foam without incident. It won't seep into this either. We'll have that all sand covered and all that good stuff. And that's truthfully how we're going to make this work. Then when we need to remove this, or we want to move this table, we'll be able to unplug this. The plugs will be underneath. We'll just lift the tree up and off. The table itself will remain relatively flat. It will have obviously a cutout that size in it, and then we'll be able to store the table, and then we'll be able to store the tree, and we don't have to try to manipulate or maneuver the tree around. So that's basically the design. Now, that's not something that I could do if I didn't make any forward planning for this. So forward planning on your terrain projects is super important. Obviously, this one is massively important because the tree is so freaking huge. And to move this thing around would be problematic later. So I'm fairly confident that will work. That's the plan. That's the plan I'm rolling with right now. And I'm just really kind of glad I don't have to try to build a table with that tree attached in the middle, because that would be super hard to work around continuously. Right now I can kind of clear it off. I'm building everything for the tree. Then the tree is going to get a lot of work because it needs to have a lot of bark and things like that. So yeah. You're welcome, Mark. Thanks for hanging out with us. Okay, so let's get back to this piece. We cut the first section, and now what I'm going to do, just to again use my template, line this up at the top. This gives us our rough estimate. There we go, hold that in place. And the reason this becomes a little bit tricky is because, well, you'll see in a second when I pull this pen or this template off, is the cuts right up to the top on this 2 mil leave a lot of room for blade deflection. And because we're using angles, it doesn't take long to sort of deflect. So if you're looking at this right here, we run up here, we got a bit of meat down here, and then we run up, we really are tempting fate here at the top because there's not really much to run through. And the blade likes to deflect here because that 2 mil is pretty thick. The window itself will probably scrub out as I'm working on this. I just put it in there just so that I can make sure that I'm orienting the cuts correctly. I'll redraw on the window and we'll cut it out, and I'll show you how that works. Any other questions, feel free to ask away, of course. I just repeat that because I do not know if we have new people coming in or what have you. All right, so what I'm going to do is go like so.
I typically just hold the ruler down. The first couple cuts are really just sort of scoring or grazing, just etching that surface. And then I start running it through a little bit more aggressively, 7 or 8 times. Might seem excessive, but it just makes the cut a little bit nicer. Since you're cutting at an angle, would it be easier for the blade deflecting to add a couple of mils to each side of the wall? I think I know what you're meaning. The reason I can't do that is just the angle that this needs to set at. So if you look right here, adding a little bit to each side wouldn't really change the angle that I'm kind of cutting that at, I don't think, unless I'm not following your question. But this just gives me a really nice fit here, as you can see. So I think if I added any, it would just basically have it come out here. I think what you're saying is it would give me maybe not as tight of a angle up here. I'm just wondering if I added 2 mils on this side, I would add 2 mils on this side, so the angle itself might be the same. I think you're just saying slightly wider. The reason I chose to go with this is because initially I had it a little bit wider when I did the first template. I just found that it was too wide, and I'm just trying to stick with the design. So I wanted the windows to kind of be fairly close together, and a little bit thicker on each side, 2 mils and 2 mils. Then I'm talking 4 mil there. So that's roughly half a centimeter. And initially I had it maybe twice that distance. So maybe half would have been okay. I just ended up having them pretty tight at the top. I don't know. There's no real method to it. I guess I designed it that way. Probably would be easier. But I'm living with this, I guess. So it just keeps it a little bit, it allows me to get a few more windows in effectively. So it's not the end of the world. I just have to be really careful. That's all. But you've seen that one matched up pretty good. So just doesn't give me a lot of wiggle room here at the top. And what I do is I just bend it over on those, and then I just do a check. So I have to kind of check it like this, so just bear with me while I bend down. That's not bad. I just check it on either side. That just allows me to know if both angles are relatively correct. And so we got one. We're going to cut the window out. I just want to check it on the tree here, just to see where I'm going to do the next blank panel, just so I don't get too far ahead of myself here. One window, 2 windows and a blank. All right, so we're gonna do 2 more windows on this side and then a blank one. So we'll actually work on this side here. All right, so let's go back in and cut this window out. I'm just gonna retrace the lines for the window real quick. Go. Set that aside, get rid of our scraps. Same thing with this. I just come in and just start scoring out the window. Now, I did this one a little bit different, and I'm going to show you. And the reason why is anytime you're cutting in the center of plastic art, particularly plastic art that's this thick. Now, the rules are a little bit different for 2 mil plastic art. A lot of people probably haven't worked with 2 mil. It's really quite thick. The reason I'm doing that is because I have to go over this vault. So if you're looking here, there we go. You can see that hardly any of that plastic's actually touching. It's here and here. It gave me a lot of fits actually gluing the first couple pieces. And because I'm doing that, if I used thin plastic art, I was a little bit worried that it would deflect and deform. And so I chose to go really thick here so that it's going to be really structurally sound around the outside of this. Now, typically when you're working with thinner plastic card, a couple cuts, a little bit of flexing, no problem. It's easy to cut through. You also don't go through your blades quite as fast.
and generally 1.5 mil thick is what I like to work with. But this particular, like I said, this particular piece, I needed to have something a little bit thicker. Therefore, it's a little bit more problematic, especially cutting out these windows. So for this right here, what I'm doing is I freehand it. I have a line, so it's kind of like tracing, and I just want to cut following the line. The first cut is just, again, a scoring cut, but the first cut is actually the most important because all subsequent cuts will follow that trace line. And so you want to be careful. I'm trying not to overcut, and I'm also not going quite to the corners. And there's a reason for that, and I'll tell you in a second why. All right, so I just cut that out. A few cuts there. I'm going to trace this next one. Sorry, it's hard to talk and cut precisely, so I haven't mastered that yet. I've only been working at this for 15 years, so you can't expect me to have those skills. All right. You guys can ask questions, though. All right. Okay, so the reason I don't cut all the way to the corners is because I'm going to be doing a really aggressive flex here right now. So not something that I would typically recommend doing. It's not something that you need to do with thinner plastic card, but it is something that you do need to do in this particular case. If I end up cutting right to the edges, what I typically will have happen is it'll overcut. And then when I do go to flex it out, what ends up happening is I stretch or I extend those cuts one way or the other, and then it ends up being a little unsightly. So I cut pretty close, I score it pretty deep. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use my two thumbs, and I'm gonna flex, and I'm not gonna flex at the corners. I'm actually gonna flex first at the edge here. So I'm gonna flex here, here, and here. And what I'm doing is just trying to extend the cut. But I want to extend the cut from the middle. Okay, there, that one broke. That one broke. That one broke. Okay, fantastic. So now we got all three broke, and I just need to flex it a bit more, and then we should be able to pop it out. There we go. Okay. So now it pops out, and I don't have any, I'll bring this as close as I can here. I don't have any, that's a pen mark, not a cut line. I don't have any breaks in the corner. Now all I do is I just take my knife, I just do a little, kind of a little slide to the corner. Try to show you here, a little slide to the corner. And all I'm doing is just clearing out any debris or flash that remains in the corner. I'm gonna grab my sanding stick. This is a flex pad one, just a medium grit one. And I'm just gonna run that in the bottom side. And that's just kind of squaring up that edge. And there we go. So now we have a nice shape window. Now, on the back side, what you'll see with those flexes is right there, you'll see a little bit of chipping and deflection. So when that came out, you can see there's a little bit of flash there and there. That's on the back side though. So you can live with that because by doing that, you avoid any cuts on the front side and there's no flexing in the corner. Let me just grab a scrap piece. Okay, I'm gonna use this just a thin one here. So I'm just gonna kind of illustrate that point again. So if this is the corner right here, and let's just say I was, like actually this one here I did because I was just cutting a scrap piece. So this one here in the corner, there we go. You can see the knife has gone through on both sides. So if I were to do that and flex, what you're gonna see happens is right there in the corner, I have a run. And as soon as I have that run, I can end up having like I can literally tear that, and see how easy that is to tear. Now, somewhere where I don't have a run, I can't tear that. I have to snap it. So if you get a run in a corner and you get a little bit pressure, obviously this stuff's a little bit thicker, so it's nice. But if you had any of that and you push that, you can get a run and it will rip your piece or break your piece, and it just won't be good for you at all. So again, just one of the things that working with plastic card I've discovered. It's a little scary at first because you think you're going to break everything, but if you work from the middle and work your way out, it translates into a nice clean cut. So, all right. I am just checking really quickly. Just want to make sure that I got some. Hoping that the live stream is translating onto some of the pages. So I think a lot of you guys are seeing me through the TheTerrainStudio page, which is great. And wherever you're coming at, thanks for hanging out. Okay, so let's go over to this piece here, back onto the actual housing. And what we're going to do is we're just going to glue top and bottom. It's going to be pretty straightforward. We're going to hold it in place, and then we're going to move on to the next one. We're going to kind of rinse and repeat. So feel free to ask me about other parts of the project, parts I'm not working on, or whatever you have for questions. So when you're gluing them, make sure, it's easy because I have the pen lines on the front. I want to make sure that I glue the pen line. I also am going to put a small bead of glue just on this inside edge, and that's just going to help me get a little bit of adherence to the neighboring piece. You guys notice I cracked out another bottle of glue. There we go. All right, so again, just getting down a little bit lower. It's a little bit easier for me to work from this angle because I can see. Just gonna press that into place. There and there. Again, it doesn't have a lot of ability to grip, and so I have to look for strong adherence. And then I usually go back and do a little bit of glue filling. I'll just put a little bit of dabs of glue kind of down in the edges, let that sort of run down and run through, and just kind of creating a little bit of extra support. What we're going to end up doing though is these seams right here, they're going to get another piece added, so they're going to have a little bit of a joint go between them, and so that will strengthen that seam up a little bit more. Obviously this is going to get glued to a surface. It's going to get glued to the platform, which I can actually grab and show you guys. Let me just pop it off here. So this is the base of this, so this is going to get glued to here. And then what we're going to do from there, let me just go to the overhead cam. Then what we're going to do is we're going to add some bamboo skewers, and we're going to make an entire walkway that goes around this. And if you guys weren't tuned in last night, it's going to end up looking a little something like this right here. This has just got primary colors on it, so it's going to have a little bit of this wrapping, so you guys can see this. We go. This is the sort of wrapping that we're using. I don't know really what to call it. It's wrapping. And then the bottom's going to get this hide treatment. This will get a little bit of a wash to make it look a little bit more distinct. And then we'll have the skewers. This is actually going to get some hide covering as well, but the skewers are going to be exposed, and that's actually going to create a walkway all around this piece and just sort of tie in to have that look there. So that's what we're doing with that. So lots on the go. There's lots to see over the next coming little bit here, and you guys are getting a treat because this is a Patreon project that the patrons were kind enough to allow me. I sort of suggested, hey, why not this month make it free for everyone and let everyone kind of check out just while you're home on confinement like we all are here. So hopefully this video finds you safe and sound and doing something productive. Okay, so back to the process. So I don't think I need to repeat all of this, but I will just kind of work away and wait for
things to chat about. You guys are working on anything or want to share a story? Feel free. It's been really quiet here in the studio because obviously I can have no one over. No one is gaming here. No Friday night fights. Just Joe and I doing our regular podcast and me doing additional live streams. So, which is fun. Just a little bit better when you have, people. So, all right. So let's cut this next one out. Go. What do we got here? Some dark 3.0 paints that I'm going to paint a dragon with. Okay. Not 100% sure. Are the 3.0s like the ultra dark pigmented paints? Is that what those are? Okay. Well, I'll be interested in seeing what the results look like. You definitely send me some pictures. (99.95% light absorption). Awesome. It's like basically you're painting a black hole. I like it. This one just needs to be trimmed a little bit more. It has a little too thick of a side on it. Just doing some really fine shaving here. Did want to line up super nice. It was good on one side, but just gonna try to see if I can trim this down to be a bit nicer. It's really not wanting to cooperate exactly. A bit better, but still not 100% perfect. Try it on the other side and see if it goes better there. All right.
That's not bad, I guess. Could be better. Pretty good on this side, so this might be the one we're gonna go with over here. Plastic might be a little bit different on that side too. Like I said, I've found that I've had to cut every piece almost individually just based on the fact that the plastic dish is not 100%. It's mold injected, but it's not perfect. Okay.
So there we go. I'm just going to do a slight trim on the bottom here too. Yeah, we'll make that work. All right, let's get rid of all these extra pieces. Fantastic. All right. I just did a swap of sides there, so I'm going to cut the window out on this side. That's why I don't cut the window at the same time. I cut the window after I do the measurement on the piece. That way, if I need to cut another one or it doesn't work, I haven't spent all the time cutting the window out, which is the most time-consuming piece or part. Okay, here we go. Three, 4, 5, 6. Again, just trying to get really deep in the center. It doesn't need to be as deep near the ends. Okay. Back to the flex. One. Two. 3. Should be able to pop it out. Let's work it around to the tips. There. Go. Go back and just clean up the corners. Sometimes they're pretty good. Usually it's the piece that pops out has most of the flash on it. That's why you pop it that way. Let's take your sanding stick. A lot of people don't sand their plastic card. I just find that it's a lot cleaner. It does a really good job, especially when you need to do precision cuts. You're able to do it with the sanding stick. So fantastic. I just want to check this side, make sure the angle of that piece isn't like wonky. Yeah, that one I put in there is not bad. It just needs a little bit of manipulating. Might just have to do one of these pieces. Just might need to be trimmed. So the next one I cut that's going to go over here, I'm going to have to do a slight adjustment on it. That's fine. This one is going to work nicely here. Not sure if I just got a message.
Just a question, get to that later. Alright, some glue along there, glue along there, little glue along the side. There we go.
Grab the window. Pop it in. A little press. Press.
Oh, good job. Glued to the table. Stronger than I glued to the plastic. I wish I could say that was the first time that's happened today. Just the glue's running at such a weird angle, it likes to flow to the bottom. I like it to flow to the bottom, just not all the way to the table bottom. So there we go. All right, so we're getting there. We got a few more done. As I said, the solid panels are because they're right next to the tree, and so I'm just going to use a couple of those blank panels just to break up the tediousness of this. I can do a little bit more of the ornate designs on here as well, but I just don't need to cut a window if it's just going to face right into a tree branch anyway. I think the Wookiees are better engineers than that, and they would have not wasted their time making windows where they don't need them. So I'm just doing a little bit of a dry fit on here, so just bear with me for a moment as I work this piece back into the tree. Dry fitting is king. All right, just checking the... All right, so one window there, perfect, that's fine. And we're gonna go... Probably going to go two more. Yeah, you know what? I can go a couple more windows here because it's a little bit farther away from the tree. So let's go make another one. Now, this one here, we're going to have to do a slight adjustment because I feel that the distance here is a little bit... I'll show you what I mean, what I'm working with right here. So this is the template. So this is the one that all of them should be. You'll notice here, though, when I put it on the bottom, if I match it up to the same angle, it lifts a little bit at the bottom, just a little teeny bit here. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut it at the template, and then I'm just going to work the angle and cut this one just slightly different. And as I said, I have had to do that a few times, and so it's just because we're not working with perfectly machined pieces, you know, because I'm not a machine. And so if I don't make it super precise, then I have to make slight adjustments. But the nice thing is we can always make as many of these as we really want to, so that's good. So we'll still start with the exact same size, base size, and then we'll go from there. If I could work with 1 mil, 1 mil is the perfect blend of structural and ease of cutting. It's definitely my preferred if I have a choice. But in this particular case, I just had to work with something a little bit thicker. I've had to work with 3 and 4 mil, and I'll tell you, it is absolutely murder on your knives. Typically, I'll use a bigger X-Acto knife, but it takes a straight like Fat Max blade, and it will dull it down in like one or two like pieces that you cut. So, 6-7 cuts through one piece, 6-7 cuts through another, and your blade is just absolutely rode off. It's really tough. You can cut it with other things, like I've cut it with jigsaws, I've cut it with Dremel tools, but when you're trying to do more precise work with it, again, it's just a challenge. All right, so this is the piece that we're going to work with here, and I just want to show you. So if I put that on there, you can see that the angle, or the bottom angle, right here, you can see that line doesn't quite run parallel with the others. So that's what we need to look at right now. So first, we'll cut it as if it is perfectly square, and then we'll go from there. do like plastic hard work though. It's like my favorite stuff to work with. So I can't complain. I can, but I won't complain too much. So all right. So we need to figure out what exactly it is we're doing here. I'm just gonna go grab a square real quick. All right, so just a couple squares here to make sure that we have everything squared up and perfect. Just want to make sure we're working with a solid piece here. I think we can make a slight adjustment on that guy too. All right, I'm going to cut this. I'm just going to use a slightly bigger ruler because I can get a little bit more weight on it. All right, let's go back here and check this out again. This angle is fabulous, the other angle not so fabulous. Just gonna check that template. So what we need to do is we need to see if we can get this. It fits our template nicely. So obviously we've cut it to that. It just needs to have a little bit of help on the angle department. So that's what we're going to do right now. And we're just going to try to cut this. All right, we're getting very close. Closer anyway. Still got to do a little bit of work. So now we're just going to change the angle, as I said, just slightly to make up the difference here. Now it'll be minuscule enough that it won't be really noticeable in the end result, but the gap would be. So what I've kind of discovered is every 2 or 3 panels have to do just a slight course correction on this plastic. So let me just grab this and then I will show you guys what it is I'm actually doing here. So I realize you guys can't see most of this. I'm just sort of talking you through it. Okay, so what I was doing here was fitting this. So this angle right here is the tried and true angle. And so when it's matched up, you'll see that I have a slight gap at the top. Okay, fair. To prove that, this is the other template, and you can see same gap. So what I have done is I've just cut the angle slightly different. So now it matches. And because the other side is still the same, in theory, the next one that goes there should match up, and we'll be right back on track. So every I think it's every about 3 panels, there just becomes a little bit of a slight gap, and I think that's either because the bottom of the bowl is not 100% flush, or I'm not getting them necessarily at the top the exact same position. And by that I mean it could be off by 1 or 2 mils, and 1 or 2 mil, not even 1 mil. 1 mil difference, 2 mil difference, 3 mil difference. As you get to the third panel, you start to get that little gap. So as long as you're able to kind of course correct, using a little bit of shaving here and there, I think we'll do all right. As I said, that seam's actually going to get another treatment as well. It's going to get a panel over top of it, and because it's going to get a panel over top of it, that gap will be not noticeable at all, because we're going to put something directly over it. And matter of fact, when we're all said and done, we're actually going to shave these a little bit as well. They have kind of a high point right now. We'll end up sanding those just to take them down a little bit more, gap fill that in, and then start putting the rest of the pieces on. So I need to make sure, since I set this down, I wasn't paying attention. Yes, okay, that way. All right. This direction. Fantastic. Now what we are going to do, though, is we're going to put the window on, and we're going to put the window on in still the middle, or as close to the middle as we can. Again, it's very negligible, and so if I didn't tell you that, you probably didn't know that, and you definitely won't see that in the end. So there's a secret. So if you ever see this in person, you can point out the fact that I have a panel that's slightly smaller than another. All
right, so let's just get back to this. So we do have something to talk about on each panel, because each panel is basically a handcrafted piece. This is why I like making terrain like this, because I know it's not going to be, no one else is going to have it. Well, if somebody ends up at this table, they will have it, but I just mean it's not something that somebody else can go out and find. You can make it, absolutely, I encourage it, but I just like having the one-off handcrafted pieces. It's work, though, so it's not for everybody. Gonna hopefully beef up the viewership of the live stream here. We're doing quite well with the podcast, lots of viewers. I go a little bit late with the working videos, so I realize I missed most of the East Coast, but hopefully you guys are able to check them out at a later time. You can always comment. Try to do some earlier as well, just so I can get include everybody. One, 2, 3. Now we'll just flex this, flex that, flex that. There we go. Fantastic. Clean up the flash. You guys know the drill. Alright, sand it away. You guys are stone quiet here, making me sweat. Oh, I gotta. Okay, so just check those other ones that we had glued down earlier. I didn't put any extra glue on any of them, but they're holding pretty good. All right, let's get this guy as well. So a little glue on the inside. go. Glue across the top. Glue along the bottom. Alright, I'm just going to cut this a little bit more. I just want to make a slight adjustment. Just not super happy with the bottom. Still not there. Sometimes you just gotta be patient, or you gotta be willing to go back to the right back to just even restarting a template. If it's just not working, there's no point. There's only so many adjustments you can do, then you just gotta cut your loss on a piece and you gotta start again. So I don't think I'm there with this one. I think I got it now, but just not being afraid to sort of do that. Sometimes it's just not going to work out for you, and that's okay too. I'm just going to put a little bit of bigger gap in there. It was nice, but I think it fits a little bit better with a bit of a gap. And I think, quite honestly, I think it's the flex of this piece. I don't have this piece glued quite enough on the top. It's the piece I did earlier. So I'm going to live with that. I'm going to put a bead of glue down in between the two of them just to get a little bit of extra strength. And then we'll just sand that off later. Just going to take some paper towel. Ugh. Flex that in just a little bit. I think really truthfully the plastic is causing me, I just looked at that and I think the plastic is just flexing out my pieces to the point where I got a nice gap when I'm pushing on it, and then if I let go of it I don't have a nice gap. So, and by nice gap I mean no gap and then a gap when I let go. So I think yeah, there we go. So there's the piece. So what happened is when I was matching it up and mirroring it up, the gap would disappear. But the second I just let it sort of glue on its own without sealing this, it wanted to flex out. So now I have it pressed a little bit nicer and it's made up the difference. Now same thing. When I put the neighboring piece there, it's going to be a lot nicer going forward. So just checking too, if I go back to where my cap's gonna go, I have a little line drawn on the inside here. It's sort of my loose reference. Let me just line that up for you guys and you'll see. And so any gap that's kind of around the roof line is going to be hidden underneath that roof line. And I'll do the veneers that are going to go on the pieces are going to be able to flush up right up to the roof. So when I'm gluing those on, I'll have the roof already glued and then I'll glue that. So then that gap there disappears. So each layer is truthfully, you're using that to hide the previous layer's gap. It's I equated it last night to fixing a hole in the wall. The hole's really ugly. It's the dog food dish. It's really ugly.
And so what you do is you start with your mesh or your rough patch piece, the piece that you're going to put in to fill that hole. So that's kind of this piece right here, the piece I'm putting on right now. And then you're going to use your stucco and your skim coat, and that's going to be the veneers that I'm going to put on. And then what you're going to do after that is you're going to paint, you're going to primer, you're going to you're going to weather, that'll be your wallpaper, and then pretty soon you don't even know the hole was there. So pretty soon you don't know the dog food dish is there, and lo and behold, you got something that looks like a Wookiee hut and not a dog food dish with plastic glued to it. So that's kind of what we're working at right now. So we're gonna cover up all this stuff that doesn't look super awesome, and we'll go from there. So. Just actually going to shave this piece here. So as I was looking at that, I could see it's a bit on the high side. There we go. Fantastic. All right, so let's just keep going. I think I can do a couple more windows for sure. What am I at for time here? Hour. Okay, I'll probably go another 20 minutes or so. Kind of keep these to around an hour and a half. Let me get rid of all the scraps here. And so you can see, you don't win any speed awards here in the studio. Everything does take a little while. Slower when you're explaining it. We got 2 or 3 panels cut, 4 panels cut. Working on a few more. Got lots of explaining done though, so that's always good. Just gonna check, make sure that we're starting with a square edge here. Cutting plastic card without a square edge is just a recipe for disaster, especially when you start talking about angle cuts later on. So, all right, let's cap that off. Let's measure out 2 inches and keep going.
Hopefully you guys are still able to hear me because there hasn't been any questions, but you guys are just listening to my musings, hopefully. Hopefully I'm still picking up some audio here. Otherwise I've been talking for a long time to no one.
All right. Okay, fantastic.
Great. Well, I'm glad you're enjoying it. It's kind of like I said. It's up my alley of things that I enjoy, but plastic card or styrene is not necessarily everyone's favorite medium to work with.
Matter of fact, a lot of people don't even really scratch build, so they're not even really familiar with it. And I'm actually going to swap blades because I noticed I was getting a little bit on the dull side here. So proper blade disposal, just in case the safety police are watching. Only need one of these. And these blades are super sharp. Yesterday I changed the blade, and I was, just one second here, I can't seem to get this new blade in. There we go. I just got the blade changed. I went to move it. It twirled out of my hand. It slipped, and it just went. Which finger did it go into? Oh yeah, this one. And it just literally stuck. Boom! Right into my finger. Just flat out, just sticking right out. I was like, oh, that's fantastic. It doesn't bleed until you take it out, but you do need to take it out. So I did, and so there may or may not be some blood in this project, but. No, it's just kidding. It didn't actually bleed until I took it out, so I made sure I was clear of my plastic card. But wouldn't be the first or the last time I've cut myself with an X-Acto knife. Okay, well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to cut 3 more panels. I think I estimated 13 last night. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 6 more will basically be that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, it might be 16. Might be 15. Depends, I guess. Okay, let's get going here with this next piece. So looks good.
And hopefully we won't have to do a whole bunch more custom cutting, because that just really slows us down. Like I said, it's every 3 or so pieces it seems needs to have some sort of angle change. Let's mark this off. There, there, there. There. And then just draw in our window for indexing later. All right. Fantastic. I will just wait for questions, and I will narrate a little less here so I can focus on cutting this. But feel free to ask anything. Questions, carrying it on. So never plan to actually get much done on live streams, because it's hard to stay as focused. But the live streams are just to show a little bit of the work. They're not to get a whole bunch done. I will link this up to Patreon later too. So just it'll be free. It'll be public visible, but it'll just go on the Patreon page. So when the Patreon reverts back to the paywall piece, they'll be there. But I am trying to get as much done in this month period here so I can share as much free and public content as possible. Then, of course, if you're interested in following the project, you can see it. Let's check out the TheTerrainStudio, Patreon, YouTube channel, Facebook page, Legion Academy podcast,
lots of places. Seemingly living on the internet. I will do another live stream tomorrow, and then I probably will not do one on Saturday. All right, let's go back to this. You guys are seeing that? Yeah, looking good. Fits nicely. Okay. So I know Chaucer's in here. I'm curious who the other 3 people, seemingly it's been the same people all night here, so you don't have to identify yourself, but you can let me know where you're coming at us from. Oops, I applied glue to the wrong edge, so that's not going to do much.
There you go. Almost like it followed a template.
There we go. So that one's, as I said, fits nicely. All right, so we'll set that aside. We'll come back in the let's cut another one. Oh, okay, fair enough. Just got a message here. Ken. Whoa, that was loud. Ken's hanging out and he's on PlayStation. That's cool. Joe's telling me about this. He was talking about how people can watch on their PlayStations and Xbox, and I was completely unaware that that existed on YouTube, or that you could watch YouTube through that. So I understand that Ken's pointing out you cannot comment from there. Nonetheless, thanks, Ken, for sending me the message. So it's cool. And maybe that's exactly what some other people are doing. So, but feel free to reach out in another way if you do have a question. I can always answer things if they're sent via Messenger or other things. Just don't really monitor my phone too closely, but I can see them on the screen here, which is nice. So I actually have a monitor on my camera that'll show you what I'm seeing here, so it's a little easier for me. Then I have it on my TV behind that, and then I have the 2 cameras and the picture-in-picture and the computer screen, and it's just inundating here with
technology. Meanwhile, I'm using a pen, a ruler, and a knife on this end when 3D printers exist. You gotta get with the times. Just kidding. I have 2 3D printers.
left. Well, I guess this is my right. It'll show up on your left and my left. Left and right. All right, there we go. The nice sharp knife makes the makes this angle cut so much nicer. You can just not stab my finger, which I just did, but get that really nice, precise cut right to the top. There we go. Okay. Get rid of these few scraps here. Oh yeah, so yeah, Chaucer's pointing out there. Didn't know that you could do that. Yeah, I guess I'm not exactly sure how it works. Just Joe had pointed that out to me and said that's just another way, because I don't think you can do Facebook, so I think we kind of miss the Facebook crowd sometimes. People that use their consoles for other purposes, internet purposes. So decided to give the YouTubes a try here and see how that works. I think the audience initially is going to be a bit slower just because it's not a usual streaming platform for me, but we'll we'll check that out and see how it goes. All right, so yeah, just a little bit of flex in the plastic here. Fits nicely there. Needs to have a little bit of chopping on the bottom, I think. Not sure which side I like it on better here. I guess I can just go there. It fits quite nicely. I just gotta keep trimming. There's a little bit of a must be a little bit of a dip here because I've had to cut the last one. Not the angle cut, but the top cut needs to have a little bit of work. Just gonna figure out exactly where I want to go with that. There. Cut that down just a little bit. Okay, fair. Ken pointing out that he likes it because he actually gets to see me on a TV screen as opposed to a phone screen. So that's also a distinct advantage of YouTube versus Facebook. So, well, good to know that it's the numbers will get up, and truthfully, it doesn't really matter how many people hang out as long as there's a few people getting enjoyment. What are we coming up on time here? 125. Okay, so we'll finish off these. We'll finish off these last two here. Might as well end on at a good space here. And we're pretty much all the way around. I'll finish that up off camera. So let me just pause here for a second. So the plan will be I'll finish up another one or two here with you guys, and so we're just getting there. I mean, we only started with 3, so we did all right here. We got another 4. We're gonna get another 5, 6 on here. I'll finish that up. As I said, the roof got done. I explained kind of how that works. Then what we'll end up doing is I'll probably affix the roof because I want to get the veneer done. I'll probably do the strapping here first, then the in-between strapping, then I'll fix the roof, then I'll do the veneers just so that I can butt them up to the top, and I'll probably get all that done tomorrow. But what I do want to bring you guys back for tomorrow, something fun. It's skewer work, so it's kind of redundant, but at the same time, it'll be something that will be a little bit easier to translate in terms of quicker cuts and hopefully a lot less finicky. So what we're going to end up doing is basically just cutting the skewers here, and we'll sort of trace those around the outside. We'll have to make sure that they'll translate nicely, because what we're going to end up getting is you can't just take, I just grab a few of these, little foreshadowing for tomorrow evening. These are all the cutoff ones that I used from the other platform. Each platform's about 200 skewers, and you primarily only use the tips. So what we're left with is lots of cutoff skewers. Now, when you're taking these and you're laying them here, what ends up happening is you can't just go straight out from the side, because what ends up happening is it doesn't follow the curvature. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to start in one place. We're going to have to come up with some sort of distance or gap, and then what we're going to need to do is we're going to go backfill each of those. But what we're then going to end up having to do is do some offsets, and we're going to have to come back in and figure out what method, what pattern we're going to fill the insides with. So that'll be the challenge. So what I'll probably do, just to speed that up for tomorrow night, is I'll probably just do a small section, show you guys what it looks like, and then we'll in turn translate that and work on a few of these. A decent amount of that tomorrow evening. So look for that. That means I got to do some more work tonight and some more work, pre-work for tomorrow. I'm going to try to go a bit earlier tomorrow as well. Just depends. I try to do the live streams after the small baby goes to sleep. So, but we'll see. All right, let's go back to a window. Let's do something that's really fun to cut out. This is one of those things, like these redundant patterns. This is where 3D printers are fantastic. Print yourself up 16 of these panels. Would be really cool. But again, putting all that stuff together, just printing everything, then just to me just feels kind of like a model kit. And if somebody could just print everything, kind of takes away the uniqueness of the build. And so for me, that would take a lot of the challenge out of it. It would take a lot of the enjoyment out of it. But if I was making like 10 of these, then like 10 of these buildings, I could really see the distinct advantage. Doing 16 panels is already going to be enough of a headache for me. I only have to build one of these. I only have to build one of these in the tree. I don't know what the ground's going to look like just yet. So we'll see if I want to do any more structures. And if I do, will I want to do any structures like this? I might do some open huts, like ones you can actually play through. Maybe similar roofs, but ones you can actually have access to. So that may be in the works. I have to see how much space I have. This project's a little bit hard to figure out spatially, just because I haven't quite decided how much water I want to have exposed. All right, we're gonna glue this guy in here, just like that. Curvatures, I guess. Just eyeballing this up. Seeing which side I like the fit better on here. Just gotta really pay attention to that flex. I get fooled by that every time. I press too hard, it deflects, and then it's like, oh, why is that not fitting? And then when I relax my grip a little bit, it's like, oh yeah, fits perfect. I've done that 2 or 3 times, I think, now. I think making my work even harder. Be easier on myself here. Just relax, slide it in, it fits. It'd be nightmarish with 1 mil, that's for sure, because the potential to not have it flex would be really tough. So there we go, we've got another one in. While I'm just taking a second here, I'm just gonna drip a bit of glue in these gaps, let that run down just to give me a little bit of a strengthening piece, and then same thing along the bottom,
Just gonna run a bead of glue right along the bottom here. Let that sort of drip into the bottom section. Go. Give that a second to run in, run some paper towel along so I don't have it build up and create a unlevel base. Spray some accelerant. And then wipe that off as well. There's the dog shake. I was waiting for that to come. Almost waited a whole hour and a half. Just to walk over here, shake on camera, just to let everybody know she's here. Well, there you go, folks. It's starting to look like a little bit of something. It'll probably look a little bit nicer. Get that roof on there. I mean, give me a thumbs up, a like. Looks good if you think it looks like something. Doesn't have to look good, but if it looks like something, fair enough. We're trying to make it look like a hut, and I think once we get some coverings and some paint and some, a walkway around it, it's really going to start looking the piece. So my wife's always telling me they look like Tahiki huts, and so that, I guess that's kind of the look I'm going for. She also said this looked like a hat. So yeah, fair enough. It's starting to look like something. Fantastic. Looking like something. Whether it's going to look good, well, you guys will be the deciders in the end. So I was just saying last night as well that not a lot of people get to see the real crappy stages of thank you, Sean, the real crappy stages of terrain making. So a dog food dish and a funnel and a cup and a cardboard and plastic, and when it starts looking like something in the end, or it doesn't look like anything you started with, that's really when you're onto something. So all right, what are we at here? 1:36. Well, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna finish this last one. Said I was going to, and so I will. And then I'm gonna go take a break myself and get a drink, because I have to talk so much when I'm on live stream, and I don't usually talk that much in my regular life, so I have to entertain. I would work in silence, but I think it would hurt my viewership, so not that it's been stellar tonight, but it's late. I get it. It's late. It's my own fault. Spread it around though. If you like it, if you think I can do better, if I can show you a different angle or explain things more clearly. It's not a lot to explain here, technique-wise. I'm not really using a lot of materials either. But other videos for sure will have a lot more product usage. Stay tuned, I guess, as they say. Tune in next week. Tune in tomorrow, but you can tune in next week too. I'll still be working. What we got going on here? Nice. Gun barrel tuning in. Long time acquaintance from games gone by. All right. Trim that. Go back to our windowed section here. Alright, we're going to need to make an adjustment on this guy for sure. It is our third panel over, so that makes sense. Go over here. Maybe what I'll do is I'll put them over here just to avoid having to do a bunch of work on this last one. Although I do need to do it over here too because it's the third panel going this way too. So fair enough. Well, let me just check this on here for 1 second. Make sure that we're not missing any sections that should have blanks. That needs to be a blank. Oh, you know what? Look at that. How lucky am I? I have to do a blank. I knew there was one of those coming up. Okay, this one needs to be a blank and it needs to go here. So I don't care about cutting this one and angle cutting it or whatever I need to do because it's going to be a non-windowed one. All right, so let's figure out how much of this we need to alter. Get back squared. Okay, something like that probably would be appropriate. So I need to now invert that, figure out what I need to cut there. Something like that, I think. So we're going to give this a go and see. These blank ones are nice. This is a nice way to compensate on the angles because they're on this case they're literally facing directly into the branch of the tree, and so you can't see the panel at all. It's just for the sake of being continuous with the plastic wrapping, we need to put something there. But there's absolutely no reason to put a window. Okay, so if I do that there, taking this one, which is the stock standard, yeah, fantastic. There we go. It's a bit of an aggressive angle, which is fine, but again, it's negligible in the grand scheme of things, and it gets us back on track for this. Okay, so let's put this one on. I like this one because I don't have to do a window. Again, carefully not to flex it too much. Hold, hold, hold. I'm gonna dribble a little glue down here. Spray a little accelerant on this one just because it's the last one and I want to hold it up and show you guys before I log off. Just clean up a little bit here. Fantastic. So, hold on 1 second. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so again, I'm not sure you can really tell the angle difference. This one is the standard angle. This one is the slightly different angle. And again, just matching that up. I'm trying to keep the windows so that they're nice and square to the bottom, so I don't want to change the angle on the window ones. Just want to keep it looking pretty straightforward. So the next one, next to this one I just put in, will be another panel one. This is the template, but as you can see, when that one goes in, the only reason there's a gap there is because this is half a mil thick, so it's a 1.5 mil difference. But you know, if I hold that in place, looks pretty good there. So that's going to be one more. Let's extrapolate this out. 2, 3, probably 4, 5, 6 more, which means we'll have used 10, 16. Yeah, so
16 will get us around. I only have 6 more to go, which is fantastic. I think I will have to do one more blank because there's a larger branch there, so the next one actually may be blank as well, and then it'll be 5 more windows. So that's not too terrible. We'll get the top on and we'll carry on from there. So thanks for watching, guys. If you're watching later or tomorrow in the future, of course, just stay tuned. Maybe subscribe to the channel if you want to know when the live videos are coming up. You should get a notification. I think that's how the YouTube thing works. And so you guys can come back and check out what's happening here in the future. So I will say goodnight to you guys. I will be back tomorrow. Like I said, I think I went around 9 o'clock Central Time, so that'll be 10 Eastern, so very late for you guys. But I might try to go 6 here, which will be 7 CST, which will be 8 Eastern. Go for about another hour and a half tomorrow evening. And as I said, we're going to be working on the platform that's going to go around the hut. The hut will be finished. I may leave a little bit of the extra pieces and kind of show you how that works. I probably will do most of that, but I will show you a few of those just to kind of give you some sort of completion of that. So I'll bring those pieces to you, and then we'll primarily work on the platform. Then we have one more piece. Let me just preview that real quick since I'm here and it's already late, so I'm not really keeping anybody up. We have one other piece that we need to work on. The bulk of it is done. These are placeholders. They are not going to be there, but this is the other piece. It's primarily already all glued together, but you can see that we need to do some work on this. So what we're going to do is we're going to come up with a cool way of doing some work on this bottom section. I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to do there just yet. We're probably going to do, it's probably going to end up being the corrugation here. It's probably going to be wrapping on the bottom. And then what we need to do is at the top where that hole is and the bottom where that hole is, we got to make some plastic card sort of industrial pieces. So they kind of have like exhaust ports and things like that coming off. So we're going to be doing that on several of those. But I think what we'll do is we'll, when we work on this one, we'll start with this one and kind of work our way backwards because you've already seen some of the other elements. So we got the 2 bottom platforms done. We got the roof done. We got the hut nearly complete. We got to do the walkway around the hut. We got to do this piece. And then that is all of the standardized pieces for the tree. Then after that, what we're going to do is we're actually going to start affixing those to the tree itself and then get working on the bark. I have to do a little bit of painting because I need to get at least base coats on this stuff before I start encapsulating it with bark. Then I'm going to come back and airbrush and do all the finer details while it's attached to the tree. It's just a little bit easier. It shows me where I am and are not going to have to paint. I don't want to spend a ton of time painting a whole thing if it's going to be half covered. It's just not smart and not efficient. But then we'll get that, and then we're kind of stuck working on the whole tree. So we're gonna have to back all the cameras up so that we can actually see this ginormous monstrosity on camera, and then we'll get in and start doing the fine details on the tree. Then we'll set the entire tree aside and then start working on the tabletop. And I will tell you right now that we probably won't get past the most of the tree this month. So unfortunately, most of that's going to roll over just into the Patreon side of things. So if you want to go check that out, it will be on there. Truthfully, it's $5 a month. It gets you access to every single thing that I put on there and access to all the old stuff. So if you do want to check that out, it's really helpful. It just keeps me kind of into this sort of business. This is what I do as my side job, but it really just kind of helps me. Primarily what it does right now really just pays for my eCam software, and it pays for the internet bill here in the studio, just so I can kind of bring this stuff. So truthfully, it's not making a ton of funds, but it is enough to cover that stuff, which allows me to kind of spend a lot of time with you guys on the live stream side of things. So I do thank all my Patreons, or my patrons rather, for their continued support, and of course you guys all month. This is my kind of, hey, kicking back to what I can do for COVID-19 seclusion. It's really tough that everyone has to kind of be stuck inside. I'm okay with it. Not the COVID-19 side of things, but being stuck in the studio working is what I do every day anyway. So seclusion is okay for me, but it does suck that you guys are kind of stuck at home. So whatever I can do to help you out there, that's what I'm attempting to do. So till next time, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Cheers.